Well, eventually both of them saw red, and Inter Miami blowing yet another lead, and a lot of questions to be asked about them in this one. So this brings us to our calm or alarm, because Inter Miami now winless in 4 straight across all competitions. Jeff, let me start with you first. What is going on with the defending MLS Cup champions?
Well, I mean, you look at their goals for and goals against, and the goals against jump out at you. I mean, 38 so far. That's 12th out of 15 teams in the Eastern Conference. But I think if you look deeper, you realize that the Inter Miami has had a lot of injury problems. They're missing Mikael in the back. They just got Sergio Reguilon back in the lineup, in the last game. But they're missing Bertarame, Silvetti, Allende. So, I mean, that's a lot of talent that they're being forced to do without. And obviously, Messi's been gone for, as he came back from the World Cup. So, listen, I'm still calm when it comes to Inter Miami. There's a lot of time left. There's a lot of games left. And we'll see, how well they do, down the stretch. But I think if they can get healthy, if they can get some of these guys back and find a little bit of consistency in terms of a lineup in the back. I mean, they've been chopping and changing. And then there's the lack of clarity in goal. You've got Rocco Rios Novo, and then, Dane St. Clair. I mean, who is it? I mean, I just think that at some point you've got to decide on one guy who's going to be, the goalkeeper that you start with and then build from there. So I think Miami are lacking a little bit of stability right now, a little bit of consistency, but I think there's still time to get that back.
Shaka, is there time to get that back? What would you say to kind of steady that ship right now, especially with what Jeff is saying? Of course, we know Inter Miami has always looked good in the attack, but defensively now, that is letting them down.
And you're seeing that play out in front of your eyes in real time. To Jeff's point, a lot of injuries for them to deal with. And you hope they come back before the playoffs start in earnest. Right now, and I think Lionel Messi just continues to get better after the World Cup, after the family disruptions. He's back and settled and looking good yet again. We know how good a player he is. That is not at all up for question. As far as calm or alarm goes, I'm still on the calm side. But with each week, with each game of conceding multiple goals, it just starts to edge towards that alarm. But I'm not pressing the panic button just yet.
Well, as we said, Jeff, it has been a bit of a summer of heartbreaks for Lionel Messi, both personally and on the pitch if we're looking at the World Cup final. Now that he's back, of course, he's assisting again, he's scoring again. You expect him to do that, especially at this level. But how does Messi look to you? Does he look back to 100%?
I think he's still working his way back, not just physically, but, I mean, mentally. I mean, obviously, this is a guy who's been through a lot of late, losing his father. I mean, that's just, extremely difficult to cope with for anybody, much less a guy is expected to perform week in, week out. So I think there's time. I think he's gradually working his way back. He's still able to weave his magic on the field. But again, I think even before the passing of his father, the World Cup takes a lot out of players. It's a huge moment in their careers. It's something that they've been planning for all their lives. Even if a guy like Messi has won it before, it's still a huge, huge part of his career and something that he's been planning for. So I think there's still time for him to kind of not only get back physically, but kind of get back emotionally and get a little more centered as the league heads into the latter stages.
Yeah, of course. Lionel Messi definitely a vital part of this Inter Miami team and pretty much everything that they are trying to accomplish yet again. But let's talk about what we saw, the ugly scenes that we saw towards the end of the game now, that little kerfuffle, we should say, even though we were applauding the takedown. It was a pretty nice one. But this is what it actually stemmed from, because there was an incident prior to what we saw in the highlights where Messi had a bit of this heated exchange with Quinn Sullivan, the brother of Cavan Sullivan. He's now at the center of this controversial incident because you could see hands were put in places they probably should not have been put. And now we are hearing that the MLS disciplinary committee is considering possible punishment for the Argentine. Before we do get to that, though, Shaka, your thoughts on what we saw there, because that eventually led to what we saw between Yannick Bright and Cavan Sullivan, who probably was just defending his brother.
Yeah, first of all, credit to Cavan Sullivan for steaming in as he did in support of his older brother. But then that is not necessarily just a brother thing. That's about teammates standing up for each other. Inter Miami do it as well as anybody. I will say this. On the face of it, I didn't make an awful lot of Messi's kind of extending of the arm, I can phrase it a whole lot worse than that, on Quill Sullivan, or indeed his reaction. Maybe it's kind of reflective of the times that I come from, but I think at best those two things, those two are a yellow card each and probably no more. I will also add, which we didn't see, Falcon on a couple of occasions during the course of this game. His reactions on the end of a couple of heavy challenges, I thought were as exaggerated as you could hope to see. Now, had Quinn Sullivan done as Falcon had done on those couple of occasions, we could be having a very different conversation about Lionel Messi. If Sullivan sells it in a similar way, because then the defense is, well, there was a hand to the face and there was a reaction, and now you have a very different conversation. But as it played out, Sullivan stayed up, kind of approached Lionel Messi, and it just kind of petered out, in my opinion. Petered out from there. At best, a yellow card for both, and let's just keep playing.
Jeff, what do you think? You think just yellow card for both or keep playing, or do you think Messi probably should face any more disciplinary action?
Well, listen, I've seen red cards handed out for less.
Yeah.
And, anytime you've got hands to the face, you are, tempting the refereeing fates, if you will. Obviously, in this situation, the referee opted not to sanction either player. I think what will happen is that Messi will get a hefty fine, which will be no bother to him at all because it will be a rounding error on his tax return.
I was about to ask, can he afford it?
But, I think, it's unseemly. I mean, the world's greatest player does not need to be doing that. And, he's getting away with it because he probably knows that he can. But, I would not be opposed to him getting a suspension, but I think what will end up happening is he'll get a hefty fine and then they'll move on.
Yeah, well, we saw that was pretty much the catalyst to what was the eventual scuffle that we saw at the end, which did lead to 2 sending offs there. But let's hear now from the union's interim manager, Ryan Richter, on what he thought of the whole situation.
Yeah, I thought the action that kicked off that whole situation in scrum was the real lack of respect from Frey. When he comes over on top of Quinn, goes out of his way to do this. And you can look at the action for yourself. But so Quinn's reaction is totally normal of what you would do in that situation. But it's a real lack of respect, and things like that happen when people behave like that on the field. Well, when I look at it, I didn't see Cavan's reaction as a red card. He grabs a guy's shirt and gets punched in the head twice. But when we're on the field, we have to stand up for each other. We have to, it's funny when it's brothers standing up for each other. I'm sure their dad is the one that told them you never let something like this go. But as a team, we have to always stand up for each other and, not go across the line where it's, you're getting suspended for games and you're getting red cards. But that wasn't the case in this one. So hopefully we can review that and get what I think is the fair outcome from it.
Now, Ryan Richter calling out Jamaican international Ian Frey there. We're very peaceful people, let me just say that. Shaka, you would know that firsthand. But Shaka, what do you make of what Ryan Richter had to say about that one? It is actually Cavan Sullivan's first career red card. And when you look at the footage, was it deserving of it?
Oftentimes you see the reaction be punished in the way that it is. Kind of given how everything played out and how many players then got involved, you felt at some point, once you see that many players in that heated an exchange, in that close proximity, somebody's going to get sent off. And Cavan Sullivan, because he kind of runs into the crowd, and then this exchange, and I think the coach is right. He gets the worst of it. He grabs his shirt, he's punched a couple of times, so there's no question about that red card. But from the time Cavan Sullivan comes running in from a distance the way he did, you felt he would be the Union player who would be punished.
Yeah, and you just saw things continue to get a little heated there in the tunnel. Jeff, what did you make of what Ryan Richter had to say and, of course, what Shaka just had to say?
Well, I think Ryan Richter has not been head coach for very long, but I thought he was very adept in the way that he approached that situation in the post-game press conference. He stood up for his guys. He walked right up to the line, I think, of inflaming things a little bit, but then he backed off. So, I thought that was, pretty astute post-game press conference giving by Ryan Richter. Obviously things have turned around for Philly. He deserves a lot of credit. And we'll see, what steps these guys or this team is able to make as they head down into the home stretch here.
Yeah, Jeff, let me stick with you because you just hit the nail on the head, too. As I said, Philadelphia Union definitely have had their fair share of troubles as well. And one of the best headlines for them has been everything that Cavan Sullivan has been doing for them. He has been absolutely thriving there this season. So it leads me to ask you now, just how close is he to being ready to be on Mauricio Pochettino's radar, especially with the international window coming up in September and October?
Well, I think he's definitely on Pochettino's radar. I still feel like it's a little early to call him up, for this upcoming window. Listen, I think Sullivan has taken some fantastic strides this season. Obviously there's a tremendous amount of hype around him, signing, a pro contract, at the age that he did. He's still only 16, he's pegged to go to Man City, a lot of expectations. And I think he's taken, some really good steps in this campaign, to prove that he deserves those accolades. I'd just like to see him do it for a little bit longer period and then, go full bore and bring him into the full national team. I think the thing that he has going in his favor is that this next window is going to have 4 games. So I doubt that Pochettino is going to use, the same lineup or the same core of players for every single match. I think he's going to chop and change. It wouldn't surprise me to see him have like an expanded roster of more than 26 players. Just to give some new guys a chance to get a look at them up close, maybe see what they can do in a game, and then take it from there. So I like what I've seen from Cavan Sullivan. I still want to see a little bit more, just for a little bit longer period of time, and then give him that call-up.
Mauricio Pochettino with extended rosters, chopping and changing. What? Never. But let me go to another level senior head here on Football Americas. Shaka, we're talking about a youngster, 16 years old. Of course, a lot is now expected of him, especially with that contract with Manchester City that he's set to go when he's 18. But when you see him playing like this and having him turn things around for Philadelphia Union, you're tempted to just throw him in the deep end now. Do you want to see him get that chance now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If I were Mauricio Pochettino, or I were advising Mauricio Pochettino, I'd have Cavan Sullivan in my squad. I think without question. And it's less a case of, is Cavan Sullivan the player right now to come into my starting 11 and make that impact immediately if we have a significant international or tournament to play next month? You don't. I think right now you are thinking, as the men's national team coach, you have to think in 4-year cycles. Who will be in that squad? Who do you expect to be in that squad come 2030? I don't think there's any question that Cavan Sullivan will be in the US squad come 2030. So why not have him in now? Even in a window like this, where, as Jeff says, multiple friendlies that you have to manage, you will be using a deeper squad than you normally would for most international windows. This is a perfect opportunity for a soft launch with Cavan Sullivan. And again, it's less about what happens in September as opposed to what happens in June and July 2030. 2030.
You know how old he'll be? Turning 20 years old.
What an old man.
How old will we be?
Well,
how old will you be, Shaq?
Go. I won't be 20. Let's
oh
just leave it at that.
Days. To have youth on their side, it is a beautiful thing. But despite all our ages, we're still churning out multiple shows here at ESPN. Just a reminder that ESPN FC, a fresh episode dropped today. Shaka Hislop was on it, giving his very early Premier League predictions. Make sure to catch it all the time, 7 days a week.